right, we are live. Still have a couple minutes, 4 minutes until we're supposed to start. If anybody is there and you can hear me, if you would please let me know, I would appreciate that. And I'm excited to get started in 4 minutes. Live. Still have a All right, it looks like it's working. So I'm just going to wait until 7 o'clock on the nose and then we'll get started. I am excited. If you watched the first one, I've made some updates, so I'm excited about that as well. If anybody's here early and you want to say hello, I would love to say hi. Yay, thank you, Kelly. Haha, hi. Okay, I can put my phone down now because I know somebody can hear me, right? And you can see me. Thank you for coming, Kelly. I don't know if you watched the first one or not, but I made a couple of changes, so I'm excited about that. Yay. Just a couple more minutes. I'll start at 7 on the nose so I can respect everybody's time. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. I'm glad I could add to it. There were a couple of things that were missing the first time. So I'm glad that you asked me to do it a second time. This is a good thing. This is a good thing. And I'm going to record it and put it over on my YouTube channel. So I'm pretty pumped about that. All right. Let's see. All right. One more minute and then we will get started. This is like a super awkward silence. I don't even have any music playing or anything. It's just super awkward. It says share, but I can't click it. I don't know. This technology is new to me. I don't really know how that works. But you tagged people, right? So it's just the Empower and Flourish Facebook page is where we are. So I don't know. I'm sorry. All right. It is 7 o'clock. I can still see the comments, but we're going to get started. I think we're just going to do it like that. Okay, let's get started. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out with me tonight. For Healthy for Jesus, we're going to talk all about chronic systemic inflammation. Your daily choices may be unknowingly contributing to your symptoms and to your diagnoses. So let's jump right in. So first, I just want to welcome you and thank you for being here. There's so many different things you could be doing at 7 o'clock at night, like watching Netflix. And I'm so glad that you're here taking time to invest in your health. And, and I want to start with a question. What if What if your symptoms and chronic diseases or whatever health issues have brought you here today, what if they could go away as a side effect of just making different daily choices? How would that change your life? In case we haven't officially met yet, my name is Teresa Falah, and I've worked in traditional healthcare since 1995. So about 26 years now. And in addition to working as a nurse, I also taught nursing students for about 5 years. So I have been in all kinds of different areas of the healthcare field. I've worked in critical care, I've worked in long-term acute care, I've worked in psych, I've worked in hospice. I have been around the traditional healthcare system. And I was also really, really sick. And the doctors basically gave up on me and told me to file for disability when I was in my early to mid 30s. So I have a lot of experience from both sides. So I know what it feels like to be the patient sitting in the doctor's office praying that today is going to be the day that I get the answers. I don't know if you can relate to that. If you've ever had that feeling of finally, like, this is the doctor, this is the specialist that's going to solve my problems. They're going to tell me what's wrong, and then there will be a plan, right? That's what we think going into this, that when we get the name for the thing, then we'll have the plan. But I also know what it feels like as a nurse to be the one to give the bad news to the patients and to help them to navigate the broken healthcare system that we're dealing with here in the United States. So I have been on both sides and I know what it feels like. If you want to learn more about my story, where I cry, it's really a hard story for me to have told. Or if you want to hear about my educational background or anything like that, you can find all that information over on my website, empowerandflourish.com. But I'd rather spend the time that we have tonight teaching you instead of talking about myself. So we're going to jump right in. And we're going to focus today on inflammation, drops in your sponge, and how this contributes to your symptoms, your diagnoses, and your overall lack of energy. If you're a note taker, I wanted to let you know that I created a video called Healthy for Jesus that explains all of this. And there's even a workbook, and I'll tell you how to find that at the end. So you don't feel like you have to take notes. Now, at the end, if you ask me questions about specific products or something like that, that's not in the Healthy for Jesus video. But the concept of the inflammation, the concept of drops on the sponge, all of that is in this video. Oops, I skipped one. Okay. What to expect? 20, 30 minutes. It just depends on how nervous I am and how fast I talk is how long we'll go. And then I really would like to have an opportunity to answer your questions. So gather your questions together. You can put them in the chat now if you want, but it would be easier if you kind of wait until the end and then you can put all your questions in the chat. And my awesome mother, Marie Beard, is here to help me. So she might respond to you in the chat as well. Any questions before we get started? Anybody? Everybody's good. You can hear me. We're good, right? And I think there's a delay from when I ask that to when I can see it, but okay. Well, we're going to pray and then we'll get started. Lord, thank you for giving me this opportunity to share some of what I've learned and some of my experiences with your people. I'm so grateful that a lot of the hard things that I've had to go through in my life, we can now use to help your people. I'm so grateful. Thank you that technology is working tonight, that they can hear me, that I'm not super stressed out like I was on Tuesday. Please let my words bless the people on the other side of the screen. And thank you so much for this opportunity. In your precious son's name, I pray. Amen. Oh, good. So I just got your comments that you're good. So fantastic. I'm glad. There's like a delay, so you have to bear with me. Okay. Inflammation is a concept that's widely misunderstood. And when we hear this term inflammation, I feel like we immediately associate it with either an injury or something that we need to take over-the-counter medications like ibuprofen or Aleve for, right? So let me start by explaining that inflammation is not necessarily a bad thing. It's actually a really important part of your immune system. Your immune system is designed to limit tissue damage from harmful things. And when I think about my immune system, I picture it like my own personal army whose job is to protect you from all the things that can hurt you. So I don't picture a blue guy with no clothes on and a shield like what's in this picture, but I do picture my own personal army. So the inflammatory process then is a vital part of your immune defense system. And when your immune responses are temporary and localized, this process is a really good thing. So, for example, if you get stung by a wasp or a bee, that triggers an immune response. And then inflammation is sent to surround the area and minimize the spread of the insect's venom. This is short term. It's a really good thing. We want that to happen. Chronic inflammation, however, is not such a good thing. That's what's leading to the damage of your tissues and your organs. And chronic inflammation that becomes systemic, which means it's going throughout your body, which is what our big problem is. This is the hallmark of most chronic diseases. I'm going to say that one more time because I don't think that's really sinking in to people that this chronic systemic inflammation, it's all throughout your body. That's what's causing most of our chronic diseases. So long-term systemic chronic inflammation leads to big problems like chronic diseases and even some cancers. So this slide is just a couple of examples of chronic diseases that are caused by systemic inflammation: asthma, cardiovascular disease, a lot of different kinds of cancers. Type 2 diabetes is contributed to by this chronic systemic inflammation. Chronic kidney disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, autoimmune and neurodegenerative disorders are all caused by systemic chronic inflammation. So just to review, inflammation is a good thing for acute problems, short-term acute problems like the bee sting. It's the long-term or chronic inflammation that's bad and is leading to problems. But there's good news. Anytime we know what's causing something, that means we can get to the root cause and work on fixing it. So we know that chronic or long-term systemic inflammation is leading to chronic diseases. We also know how to limit or slow down our contribution to the systemic chronic inflammation. And since we know these things, that means we can start to make different choices that will positively affect inflammation. So how do we do this, Teresa? That sounds great. What do I do? Well, that's where the concept of drops on your sponge comes in. But before I can explain drops on your sponge, I need to explain about your maximum toxic load. So we each have an ability to manage a maximum amount of toxins. And every day we're exposed to a plethora of toxins. There are chemicals in the air, in our homes, in our water, in our food, in our prescription medications, over-the-counter medications, everywhere, all day, every day, exposure after exposure after exposure. Depending on your genetics, your nutritional state, your overall health, you're going to be able to deal with a certain amount of toxic exposure. And the amount of toxins that you can handle is different than mine or the person next to you or the next person. We all have a different maximum ability to handle toxins. But one day, it all becomes too much and overwhelms your system. One day your body can no longer keep up, and this is when you get really, really sick. Your symptoms started earlier as a warning sign of sorts to alarm you to stop and reevaluate your life, reevaluate your choices, to give you a chance to start making some changes. But we've never been trained to identify our symptoms is helpful. Instead, we just try to medicate them, hope they'll go away, pretend like they're not there. We're not thinking of them as warning signs. So when your body can no deal with this, that's the news. That's when you hear the word autoimmune disease and so many terrible diagnoses that are all related to this chronic systemic inflammation that's caused by these repeated toxic exposures. And I call this drops on your sponge. So I want you to picture a kitchen sponge, just an ordinary sponge that you would wash dishes with. You can add a lot of drops of water to that sponge, right? I mean, drop after drop after drop, it's going to hold a whole lot of drops. But eventually, if you keep adding drop after drop after drop, your sponge is going to become saturated. And when it's saturated, it'll reach a point where it can't hold one more drop. And when that happens and your sponge is completely full, that's when you get really, really sick. Whoops. And that's when you get chronic diseases like what we talked about on this slide. And these are just some of them. The list is long and goes on and on and on. And the drops on your sponge are the culprits. They're the contributing factors that are leading to these chronic diseases. And it's not your fault. Nobody told you. You didn't know. The doctors aren't teaching this information. It's just not your fault, but it's important to understand that these drops are what are contributing to your body's overall inflammation. They're what are making you sick. And now that you know, you have a choice to make. You can start to make different daily choices that will positively influence your health. The simple answer, not the easy answer, but the simple answer is to just stop adding drops to your sponge. Just stop doing it. The how-to is where it gets really tricky. So a couple examples of things that are adding drops to your sponge. What you're eating. I could talk to you for hours about what you're eating. What you're cleaning your house with. If you go look underneath your sink right now and you turn those products over and you look at the labels, I'll bet you can't readily bring to mind what those ingredients look like because they're chemicals that were made in a lab. What you're cleaning your house with is adding drops to your sponge. Anything that has added fragrance, perfume and cologne, shower gels and body lotions, shampoos and conditioners, laundry soap, anything with added fragrance is a known carcinogen. Bad, bad, bad for you. Fabric softener. Downy is one of the top endocrine disruptors that my clients are dealing with. Any of the fabric softeners are very, very bad. People were asking me the other night when I taught this, well, then what do I use? Well, we use white distilled vinegar instead. And it kind of smells a little vinegary when you take your clothes from the washer and put them in the dryer. But by the time you pull them out of the dryer, they don't smell like that at all. They don't smell like anything. Most laundry soaps, there are some clean laundry soaps out there. You can definitely make your own, but most laundry soaps are adding drops to your sponge. Candles, I don't care if they're soy, I don't care what kind of wick they have, they're adding drops to your sponge. Not only do they have fragrance, but they have other problems when you burn them. Shower gels and body lotions, most of them are not good. And then you're in the shower and there's hot water and your pores are open, which just makes the toxic exposure that much more. Toothpaste and deodorant are among the first thing I tell my clients to change. Your mouth is very absorbent. It's full of mucous membranes. That's why in the hospital, if you go into the emergency room, sometimes they'll have you put a pill underneath your tongue because it'll get absorbed really, really fast. So whatever's in your toothpaste is getting absorbed even though you don't swallow it. And deodorants are linked to all kinds of cancers because you've got a bunch of lymph nodes right underneath your arm. And that's where you're slathering on all of those toxic chemicals every day. Artificial sweeteners, you know that already. Everybody knows that, but we're still using them. Everywhere I go, I watch people dumping chemicals into their coffee just so they can avoid sugar. The sugar is not what's making you fat. It's not. Stop using the artificial sweeteners. Anything with natural flavoring is suspect. It's not necessarily a chemical, but it's been chemically modified in some way. Like they're just not good for you. I really would stay away from natural flavoring. It's adding drops to your sponge. And then glyphosate is a pesticide. It's I don't know if you're familiar with Monsanto and Roundup and how they put Roundup in the seeds. And I don't know if you're familiar with all of that or not. And Kelly, we teach about that in the 90-day jumpstart. So you'll get a whole module just on glyphosate. But it is for sure adding drops to your sponge. I had somebody ask me to please mention breast implants, which are definitely causing systemic inflammation and problems, whether they're leaking or not, they're causing problems. And then poor oral hygiene is also causing problems that's leading to systemic inflammation. And there's a whole host of other things. I'm trying to keep our time together like short and not just talk too much, but this is just to give you like an introduction to this whole concept of drops on the sponge and how that leads to chronic diseases. So just remember that decreasing your drops in all of these different areas of your life will decrease inflammation. And my goal is to educate you so that you can start to make different daily choices. Start reading product labels, start researching ingredients. And if it's made in a lab, it's suspect. If you can't picture what the ingredient looks like I mentioned, when you go and look at your household chemicals, if you can't picture what that looks like, then it's not found in nature. It's suspect. It was made in a lab. Now, sometimes clients will hear me talk about this and they're like, oh my gosh, you're freaking me out. Everything I'm doing is wrong. Like, please stop. And I'm hoping that you don't feel that way, because perfection is not the goal here. You can't change everything at once, nor should you try to change everything at once. It's just about finding some balance. However, if you keep doing what you've been doing, then you're going to keep getting what you've been getting. And if you do what everybody else is doing, you're going to get what everybody else is getting. So there has to be some sort of balance in your life if you want the state of your health to be different. So I created a program called the 90-day Jumpstart that really helps people learn specific ways to start limiting drops on their sponge. I mean, it teaches so much more, but it teaches a lot about this. And there's a free preview version that we'll drop a link in the chat here in a few minutes for, that you can check out if you're interested. Now, if you scroll all the way to the bottom of this free preview, that's where the Healthy for Jesus video lives that I referenced in the beginning, and the workbook. So if you want to hear the full explanation about inflammation, drops on the sponge, it's there. And there's also 3 different days of content from the 90-day Jumpstart. Day 3 is called What is Health? Day 13 is more information about inflammation and how it's the root of all disease. And day 16 is about your energy tank. So that free preview is not a sales pitch. It's just solid education that I want to offer you for free to anybody that wishes they felt better, wishes they had less symptoms, and wants more energy to do the things that God has created and called them to do. If for some reason, I don't mean for some reason, but if you're in there and you're going through the modules and you would like to work for me, if you feel like the 90-day Jumpstart's what you've been praying for, then there's a discounted link in there in the Start Here section where you could get started at the original early bird price. So before we wrap up, I found this infographic today and I thought it was powerful. There's a Dr. Furman that helped to co-author an article called Chronic Inflammation is the Etiology of Disease Across the Lifespan. And the reason I wanted to show you this is because I wanted you to see that it takes hard work to improve or reverse your symptoms. It's not easy. So the purple stuff on the right is kind of what's wrong with you. And the purple or the black stuff on the left is how you got that way. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into why you're having your symptoms. Maybe you've been exposed to chronic infections, maybe the xenobiotics, which is, that's its own category. But obesity, dysbiosis means there's issues in your microbiome with your gut. It's got to do with what you've been eating. It's got to do with how much stress you've been under and how well you manage that. There's a whole section of medicine that's focused on HPA axis disorders, which means the way your body and your cortisol, like that whole fight or flight thing, the way it all works. I mean, there's a whole thing having to do with that. How much you sleep matters. Like there's this whole thing that goes in to why you feel the way you feel and why you have the diagnoses and the symptoms that you have. So it takes time to work through that stuff. And if I just sat you down and gave you a whole list of all the things you need to change in your life, you would look at it and say, Teresa, there's no way I can do any of this stuff. And I would probably burst into tears if somebody gave me that list. And that's why, not to put a plug in for my program, but that's why I created something that takes 90 days of little bit after little bit after little bit so that you don't get overwhelmed, because there's so much to learn. And Kelly is here and she could tell you, I mean, there's just so much to learn. And that's why it needs to be in little bitty pieces. So we're winding down. Get your questions ready. Before we end, I just wanted to read something to you. I've got 3 little testimonials from people that are in my Jumpstart, but I just wanted to read a couple of words off of them. I liked this one. I mean, I like all of them because I appreciate the feedback, but these people were talking about how the Jumpstart, they consider it to be a lifetime investment. This one I loved because she was talking about my common sense teaching. I get really frustrated with people that want to give a lot of theory. We don't need more theory. We need to know what we're supposed to do, and we need to know that it's backed by science. And then this was written by a nurse, and it tickled me because what she's saying is how I felt. I mean, she's so angry. This was an action step. Every day they get a little video lesson and then they have to do something. So her action step was to tell me her thoughts. And she's talking about how angry she is, that her doctor says it's just your genetics, it's just your weight, that's just how it is. And none of that is true. You have the power to make different choices that will impact how well you feel. So that questions. So thank you for playing with me. And technology worked tonight. And now I want to know how I can help you. So ask me some questions, please. What do you got? Somebody has to ask at least one question or it's going to be weird. I think there's just a delay, but someone will ask me a question, right? Michelle, Kelly, mom. Oh, there we go. Why do you feel physicians are not taught to cure, only to medicate? Well, because the pharmaceutical industry has a huge financial involvement in medical school. So it's not the doctors, right? The doctors go into med school because I think they genuinely want to help people. They're not, most of them, except plastic surgery is a little different. But like your primary care doctor didn't go into this because they want to make a lot of money. They have a drive to help people. But because the pharmaceutical industry has such a hand in med school, they've like infiltrated the curriculum. So over time, med school became less about how to fix things and more about here's the symptom, here's what you do, here's the symptom, here's the test, so you know which medication. Like it's all been symptom drives the test, drives the medicine. And then I think technology had a hand in that too, because you don't have to actually like know and do as much because you can send them for an x-ray, you can send them for a stress test, you can send them for whatever. So then you know what medication to give. I really don't think it's their fault. I just think they're doing the best that they can, and the system is broken. It's really, really broken. I hope that answers your question. Kathy, yes, they have laundry soap, and it comes, when I taught this class on Tuesday, we talked a lot about Young Living products. They happen to be my number one go-to. I love the company. I think they're the very best thing in the whole world. They own all their own farms, or else they have partner farms, and they have all of these products that are clean, and they're just my favorite. And I'd be happy to drop a link. But yes, they have concentrated laundry and the Thieves line. And that's, now that we're on the sailboat, that's what we use, because it's concentrated, it's in a small bottle, and it's easy for me. So Kathy, if you want a link to anything, just message me later. Siobhan, thank you for answering me. And that's okay that you don't have a question. And they're available, so don't worry about it. You can go back and watch the whole thing. And Siobhan, if you ever have a question, just send it to me on Facebook Messenger. I'm happy to answer. Mom, how do I lower stress myself? Or how do you lower stress? Like, how do people lower stress themselves? I'm going to answer it that way, because I'm not the best at lowering stress. Correct. Not a conspiracy theory, but big pharma. Yes, Kelly, I think that that's what it is. And yes, they can watch it from the start. It's going to be here on the page, and they can go back as soon as I'm done. I think it'll load, and you can just watch it over. So there's a lot of ways to lower stress. Not exactly sure what you're asking about. If you're asking about like the fight or flight, anyway, there's a lot of ways. You can do deep breathing. I can teach you something called heart math, which is a way to make your breathing and your heart like connected. You can breathe in essential oils, really just identifying that you're in a time in your life where you need to stop and slow down and breathe will lower stress. But if you're talking about more of like an advanced cortisol fight or flight, then sometimes you need some supplements. Sometimes you need to learn some advanced techniques. I'm not exactly sure what you're looking for there. Oh, you were asking about me. Oh, chronic stress. Yeah. Chronic stress is what you were asking. Honestly, with my clients that are dealing with chronic stress, I think you need to start with sleep, because when you're sleeping is when your body does all of the repair work. And if you don't get enough deep sleep, then you're not giving your body a chance to do, excuse me. I ate right before we came on, and now I'm like talking. If you're not getting enough deep sleep, then your body doesn't have a chance to do all of that intense repair work. So the amount of deep sleep you get every night is critically important. One of the things I teach in the Jumpstart is all about tracking your sleep if you can, if that's something that you're interested in doing. And then let's really work on making the amount of deep sleep you're getting longer. 2 or 3 hours a night of deep sleep is like this happy golden kind of place. A lot of people aren't getting 15 or 30 minutes of deep sleep. So I think that starting with the quality of your sleep is super important. And then, yeah, 2 to 3 hours would be like this amazing sweet spot, Siobhan. And I don't think most people are getting more than 15 to 30 minutes. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Like if you have chronic pain, you're not going to sleep well. If you drink alcohol before you go to bed, you're not going to sleep well. If you eat a big meal and then go to bed, you're not going to sleep well. Like if you have reactive hypoglycemia, you're not going to sleep well. So there's like all of these layers that need to be untangled in order to help people with their sleep. One of the other things I teach about is the importance of having a nighttime routine. Like you need a morning routine, but then you need something at night too, so that you can start to unwind, slow down, maybe drink a sleepy tea, turn off your blue light stuff. Like there's a lot of things you can do that will help you to have better deep sleep. What else you got? Anything else? Are you guys identifying a lot of areas in your life where you have drops on the sponge that maybe you wish you didn't? Or what? I don't know how long the delay is from when you ask something. Is it bad to take melatonin every night? It depends on who you ask. I say no. Your gut actually likes melatonin. So 3 milligrams is enough, though. The science that I have seen, the evidence that I've seen does not say you do better if you have more melatonin. So if the 3 milligrams of melatonin, quality melatonin, you got to look at the ingredients and make sure there's not a bunch of garbage in there. but I don't have a problem with 3 milligrams of melatonin a night. It's good for your gut. So many drops are self-inflicted drops. I agree with you, Kelly, but people don't know, right? It's not like you can turn the TV on and somebody's going to say, now don't buy that Downy because it's bad for you. We talked about Febreze a lot the other night, and people didn't know how like horrible Febreze is. I've told the story about how when Febreze first came out, they weren't allowed to show people using it inside a house. So all the original Febreze commercials, the couch or whatever they're spraying it on was outside in a field, because it's that bad for you that you're not supposed to breathe it in a closed environment. The other thing we talked about the other night were those air fresheners that you plug in. The Bath and Body Works insert is like pages of information about how bad they are for you. They're cancer causing, they're endocrine disruptors. Like that stuff is really, really bad. And people don't know. Well, I mean, how would they? The network or the commercials on TV are trying to sell you stuff. So nobody's going to counteract them and tell you it's bad. That stuff's really, really bad. Fragrance. And if you start looking, if you go in your bathroom when we get off this video and you start looking at stuff, the ingredient is fragrance, fragrance, fragrance. It's in your shampoo, it's in your conditioner, it's in your shower gel, and it causes cancer. What helps with gut health? Kathy, did I never get back to you about that? I'm sorry. Where do you get quality probiotics? So gut health is like this much information. Like gut health is huge. Stop using artificial sweeteners and lay off the processed food. Like that's where you start. If it comes in a package, you really need to think through if that's what you should be eating, because all of those non-food things that are in the packaged food are really hurting your gut, really causing you problems. So probiotics, high quality probiotics are super important. But if you're still going to go through the drive-through several times a week, like I get that you want Chick-fil-A once a week. Like I can agree with you that Chick-fil-A once a week is probably not going to hurt you. But you cannot be putting that food down over and over and over. If you are, don't waste your money on probiotics. Like it's not going to be enough to fix you. If you're at a place in your life where you're ready to slow down the processed and fast food, you're going to eat some fruits and vegetables, and you're not drinking artificial sweetener, then probiotics are probably the right thing for you. Prebiotic and probiotics are different, Kelly. So prebiotics, so you've got this whole, just billions and billions and billions of bacteria in your gut. I call them buddies when I teach about it. There's a book and it's really cute called The Buddies in Your Belly. So there's like billions of buddies in your gut, and there's also a whole bunch of bad ones. Your goal is to have more good than bad. Most people that have a messed up gut have too many bad that have overtaken. You've got yeast in there, and just all kinds of gross stuff going on. So the probiotics help to put the right population of good buddies back in there to fight off the bad ones. So prebiotics feed the buddies. Okay, that's what prebiotics do. They're like food for the bacteria. The probiotics are actually putting the buddies in there and then helping to have a good diversity. So the problem with probiotics is they're alive, right? But you're going to take them and they have to go through your stomach and get into your intestines and still be alive, or they don't work. And your stomach's like a pit of lava. So cheap regular probiotics, if they're alive when you take them, which is suspect, if they're alive when you take them, they're likely not going to make it through your pit of lava out the other side alive. The very bestest one is by Microbiome Labs, and it's not cheap. It's like $65 a month, and it's not cheap, but it's different from anything else on the market. And I'll tell you why in a second. The second one that I like is roughly $35 a month. But it's not even in the same ballpark as the one from Microbiome Labs. And you have to get both of those through a practitioner. You can't just go order them. So I can give you a link to this company called Fullscript. It's like you use my link and you log in, and then you can go in my catalog of practitioner grade supplements and choose what you want. there are a lot of supplements. I can recommend anything that you need if we talk, but there's only like a list of things that you can get without talking to me first. That way I don't mess with your blood pressure and like your diabetes medicines and things like that. So I do have a list of like vitamin D and vitamin C and melatonin is in there and things like that that you can go and order yourself without having to talk to me first. I hope that makes sense. I can what I'll do is when I close out this video, I'll post the link to full script in the comment thread. And then if you want it and you can't find it, send me a message. So the reason the Microbiome Labs probiotic is so different is, have you ever been to the beach and gotten a sand spur stuck in your foot? Those really hard little ball things that have spikes coming off of them. That's kind of what the technology of the Microbiome Labs probiotic is. It's spore-based, and it kind of looks like that. So it's somehow technology I don't understand. It stays in this really hard, like spore-based, I don't know what the right word is. I can't think of the right word right now, but it stays like that when you swallow it all the way through the pit of lava until it gets into your stomach. And then somehow the technology knows to open and populate so that it stays alive through all of that. That's a whole lot of words. And I hope it was worth it. I hope that made sense to you. I'm picky about probiotics because you're wasting your money. They don't work and you need them desperately. You don't have to take it forever and ever and ever. And there's a whole gut healing program that uses prebiotics, probiotics, and then something else to help heal the cells in your gut that are leaky. Oh, good. Thank you. So yeah, and I teach about all of this in the program. So Kelly, you'll hear this again. And I teach about all of this, but it's crucially important that your microbiome is healthy. And I think I'm going to do another one of these free classes in a couple of weeks about your immune system. And most of your immune system is made in your gut. And if you don't have enough buddies, you can throw vitamin C and zinc and whatever other save me from the pandemic kind of things you want. And maybe it'll help you a little bit. But if you don't have enough buddies in there, that's where your immune system is made. So you need to take care of the buddies. So I promise no more artificial sweeteners. That's like what I need you to say, because they're killing your buddies and your brain. Any other questions that I can answer for you? Thank you for playing with me. I miss teaching nursing school. I taught for about 5 years, psych and critical care. And I miss it because I would give a little bit of teaching, but then I would make them play with me back and forth. And I really like playing. You can't stand what? I got lost. Siobhan, what can you not stand? Oh, artificial sweeteners. Yeah. They're bad. Bad for your brain. They cause a lot of problems. Kelly, you're welcome. Are there any other questions that I can answer for you before we wind down? Oh, I need to give you the link to the free preview in case you want to check it out. So let me grab it real quick. Boop, 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 boop. So there's the link if you want to check out the free preview. I'm pretty proud of it. I've worked hard. I got to be on a podcast today. It was so cool. When it's published, I'll let everybody know. But one of the things I got to explain was the sailboat story. Yes, Kathy, it'll be right here. You can listen to the whole thing. It'll be right where we are now. It'll be right here. So I got to explain the whole sailboat story. So my husband and I got called to leave home and leave all our things behind and move on to a sailboat. I have a whole blog series that you can read about it. It's crazy. I'm at my mother-in-law's house right now. That's why I'm in a house. Usually I live on a sailboat. But anyway, I got to explain the whole story about how God has used this time to help me get all of these thoughts that are in my head about how to help you guys out into a program. And that's the 90-day jumpstart. So I really hope that you'll go in and check out the preview because it's amazing. Whew. All right. Well, I'm reading the comments. I think we're good. So the replay will be right here. Once we log off, I don't think it takes very long to populate. So you can start from the beginning. I love questions. So send me any questions you have in Facebook Messenger. Go check out the preview. Let me know how I can help you. And I will drop that link to the full script account here for you. And let me know how I can help you. So thank you guys. Thanks, Siobhan. Thanks, Kelly. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Mom, for playing with me. And I saw Michelle in there earlier, and I'm just super appreciative. So have a great night, you guys. And I will talk to you soon. Okay. Bye-bye.